Good morning, boys and girls. For my last assembly, at that point, you were learning all about Scotland. And from your Seesaw post this week, I can see that your focus has been on reading different kinds of book, your favourite book, and all about the language associated with reading. So today, I thought I would join both Scotland and reading itself and read you a tale that comes from a place in Scotland called Selkirk. Now, this town is very near the Scottish borders and is famous for different reasons, but one of the main reasons it is very famous for a foodstuff called bannock. Now, traditionally, bannocks were mostly made from oatmeal, but the Selkirk version is much more like a fruit tea cake idea. So I want you to snuggle up, listen carefully to this story and see at the end if you can tell me which story that you will probably know already that it reminds you of. The Wee Bannock. There was once a guidwife who was married to a good man, and their favourite thing to do was to eat lots of food. One day, the guidwife decided to make some bannocks as a special treat. The good man rubbed his tummy. "I'm looking forward to this," he said as he watched his wife bring out buttermilk, oatmeal, raisins and sultanas. The guidwife stirred the fruit, the oatmeal and the buttermilk all together. Next, she rolled the mixture out until it was just the right thickness and shaped it into two big round bannocks. Then she poured some fat in her cooking pan and sat it on her fire. When it was sizzling hot, she placed the two bannocks into the pan. The goodwife rubbed her tummy. "What a wonderful sight," she said as she watched the bannocks begin to turn toasty, roasty brown. These two big bannocks were almost cooked when the goodwife noticed that there was a small amount of the mixture left. Quickly, she made this into a third wee bannock and placed it in the pan beside the others. Now, the two big bannocks were ready, so the goodwife lifted them out of the pan and set them onto two plates, one for her good man and one for herself. The goodwife and her good man sat down to eat. In less than 1 minute, they'd gobbled up the big bannocks, for they both ate their food very fast indeed. Then the goodwife saw that the third wee bannock was toasty roasty brown, and she thought, "Oh-ho, I'll have that wee bannock for myself." And she reached out her hand to lift the wee bannock from the pan. But her good man had sniffed the air and smelt the lovely smell coming from the pan. And he thought to himself, "Oh-ho, that's a bonny wee bannock. I think I'll eat it up before anyone else does." At the exact same moment, the two of them made a grab for the pan. It wobbled over, and as the wee bannock slid to one side, he glanced up and he thought, "Look at those two greedy folks. I've just seen them eat a whole big bannock each. They don't need a wee bannock like me." So the wee bannock jumped out of the pan and skipped across the floor. The goodwife and the good man rushed to try to catch the wee bannock. Wham! They bumped into each other and fell over in a heap. The wee bannock sang out as he scampered from the house, "I'm the wee bannock who jumped out of a pan to run away as fast as I can." The wee bannock ran down the village street and he came to the cobbler's shop. Now the cobbler, a big man, was working at his shop door. Bent over his last, he was nailing some new soles onto a pair of boots. He heard the commotion and raised his head. When the cobbler spied the wee bannock running towards him, he thought, "Oh-ho, there's a bonny wee bannock. I'd like to have that wee bannock for my breakfast." But the wee bannock had spied the cobbler and he thought, "The cobbler's well fed. He doesn't need a wee bannock like me." So the wee bannock ran straight at the cobbler and the cobbler fell back with his arms up. The boot he was holding flew into the air and came down and landed on his head. And the wee bannock laughed as he ran away. "I'm the wee bannock who jumped out of a pan to run away as fast as I can. I left the good wife and the good man, and now I'm running away from thee, for you don't need a wee bannock like me. Further down the street, a young girl was sitting at her window. She was winding a long skein of wool, and when she saw the wee bannock, she smacked her lips and thought, "Oh ho, I'd like to have a wee bannock like that for my lunch." She raced into the street and tried to stop the wee bannock. But the wee bannock saw her and thought, "There's a fine pretty lass. She doesn't need a wee bannock like me." So the wee bannock dodged this way and that. Then he ran about in a circle. Not twice, but 20 times. The girl twisted round and round trying to follow the wee bannock. The more she turned, the more the wool tangled about her. Soon she was caught fast and couldn't move. The wee bannock laughed and ran on. "I'm the wee bannock who jumped out of a pan to run away as fast as I can. I left the good wife and the good man, and now I'm running away from thee, for you don't need a wee bannock like me." Now, at the end of the village was the smithy. The blacksmith was at his forge hammering a horseshoe with a big hammer. When he saw the wee bannock running towards him, he said, "Oh ho, there's a bonny wee bannock. I could eat that wee bannock for my dinner." But the wee bannock spotted the blacksmith and saw how big and strong he was and thought, "The blacksmith doesn't need a wee bannock like me." The blacksmith spread out his hands and legs to try to catch the wee bannock. But the wee bannock ran between them and tripped him up. The blacksmith dropped his hammer on his own toe and he hopped about, squealing in pain. And the wee bannock laughed and called back to him, "I'm the wee bannock who jumped out of a pan to run away as fast as I can. I left the good wife and the good man, and now I'm running away from thee, for you don't need a wee bannock like me." And the wee bannock ran out of the village towards the forest. At the edge of the forest, there were two children carrying a basket between them. They were collecting berries to eat, for there was no food for them at home. When the wee bannock saw the two children, he thought, "Look at those two children. I'm sure they'd like a wee bannock to eat." And the wee bannock called out, "I'm the wee bannock who jumped out of a pan to run away as fast as I can. I left the good wife and the good man. I ran from the cobbler, the wool winder, the smith. But I'll not run away from the likes of thee, for you folks do need a wee bannock like me." So the wee bannock jumped into their basket and they took him home. And that night, the two children enjoyed a tasty wee bannock for their supper. I hope you enjoyed that tale from Selkirk Boys and Girls. And yes, it reminded Miss Gibson of the gingerbread man. Although I'm sure you'll agree, this story had a much happier ending. Now, your task for this week is really very simple. I'd like you just to pick up a book and read a story to someone else. Now, if you have brothers or sisters, perhaps you could read the story to them. If you don't have any siblings, could you record your story? You might want to use the voice tool on Seesaw. Or maybe your parents or carers could video you reading your story, and we'll be able to share these once everyone is back in school. Now, a final challenge, if you wish to accept it, would be to write your own story based on your favourite fairy tale. We would love to hear these too. Happy reading!